I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support. Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to this very special edition of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Today we're reviewing our Skinwalker Ranch show on the History Channel. We're very stoked. We got a great panel today. Before we get to everybody, of course, just want to say thank you and hello to everyone in the chat. Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Thank you for being here. We truly appreciate it. Want to say thank you to KGRADB. We host our show there every Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. So come check us out tomorrow. We've got, who's coming tomorrow? Oh my goodness, I can't even remember. I'll think of it. Oh, Stephen Greenstreet, the person everybody loved to hate. So come and hang out with us tomorrow. Should be a good time. I want to say thank you to Dot Tapes. They provide all the tunes you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. Of course, this show, I don't know. I'll take a poll. We'll put a poll up. I don't know if you guys want to have this show on our iTunes, Spotify. If you do, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to put it up. Chances are I'll probably end up putting it up. But check out our podcast. Rate and review. Goes a very long way. We truly appreciate it. Of course, thank you to the Patreon members. Thank you to the YouTube membership, super chatters, and moderators. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but right below this screen, we've got our merch. So you can buy our merch directly from YouTube now. So if you want a hoodie, if you want a shirt, go check out the merch. It's I made some special edition stuff just for the YouTube channel. So go check it out. If you want one, buy one. Just click it. So it's super easy now for you to get some merch. Of course, if you can't support through any of those other ways with a mighty dollar, it's totally fine. All of our shows are 100% free. All we ask is you leave us a like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. That way you're notified anytime we go live with shows like this. And want to also remind you guys, we are now a StreamYard affiliate. So if you want to start your own show, or you have a friend that wants to start a show, give them the link underneath this video in the description, and they'll get a discount. And we also get a kickback, and helps us get the StreamYard hopefully for free one day. So that would be great. And then, of course, we've got links for Jane, for Rather, for Jazz, for Cristina Gomez, and for Jimmy Church is in the house today. Did not expect him to be here, but he's here, so we're going to have a conversation. Let's get it started, shall we? First, I'll introduce the regular players, Mr. Rather Be Squidding. Jane, how you guys doing?
Hey,
Doing well.
may the 4th be with all of
May
you
the 4th
today.
be with you guys. Yeah, it's that.
What was it with you today? I mean, you got your Yoda right there. It sounds like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, he's always here. So, I mean, I feel like May the 4th be with you is every day.
Yeah.
And
I
you've
agree.
also noticed we're a little more casual today. No ties. I was like, you know what? We're not doing ties
look,
for
no tie.
reviews. We're going cool. This is going to be as relaxed as it could be. So without further ado, let's bring in our other guest, Mr. Jazz Shaw. And of course, the lovable, huggable Cristina Gomez.
Yay.
And the infamous Jimmy Church.
Infamous?
Surprise.
Infamous.
Do you know what the definition of infamous is?
No, probably not. I probably
It's
doesn't
synonymous
describe
with
you right.
famous,
It's like
isn't it?
Yeah,
Will
it is
Smith,
synonymous with famous. Yeah.
kind of category right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, you are a Tommy's Burgers fan, so that could set some people off because out here in California, they're very hung up on their In and Out. But you know what's funny, Jimmy?
What's that?
Is I was listening to your show the other night with Greenwald, and we're all California boys, and I noticed you had your Tommy's shirt on, and I was like, man, I'd love to tell Jimmy that I live a stone's throw away from the original Tommy's.
Oh, so you're in Eagle Rock?
Yeah, no, well, close to Eagle Rock. It's more Los Feliz than.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, for everybody out there,
it's splitting hairs.
street
Yeah.
that But yeah, and it's still the best Tommy's too.
I agree. I've been to some other Tommy's, and it does not compare to this original little.
What is
literally
Tommy's?
a shack.
Can I just butt in and ask what
Tommy's is a famous burger spot in LA.
Oh, burger.
The original one is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then once a year they go back to their like original price for hamburgers, which is like 35 cents. So once a year the line is around the block to get a Tommy's burger, and they're famous for their chili. Like their chili is
Jane. Lou missed the whole mark in all of that.
Really?
It's a chili cheeseburger. And that's what they're famous for. And there's something about it. They put Lou's gonna laugh. They put these pickles and onions on it, and the pickles, I think the juice from the pickles, right? It's this combination that shouldn't work. And it's magic. It is absolute. It's an incredible burger. It's a chili burger, and that's what they are famous for. And words can't really describe. I think they're soggy, they're messy,
it's the dirtiest burger I've ever eaten.
It's gnarly, but
it's gnarly. It's gnarly. Like
California,
I'm into it.
Just for the record, California chili sounds to me like Manhattan barbecue, and I lived in California for quite a while.
I can tell you this chili is
California.
It is the farthest thing from California in the state of California. That chili has no business in this state.
And you know what's funny? The chili, Jazz. I don't know if you've eaten at Tommy's, but the Tommy's chili isn't chili; it's paste. Right?
It's paste.
It's paste. It's like ground. It's like the texture.
It's lard. It's lard chili.
It's lard chili.
Yeah, it's good. Like, it's good.
It's good. It's so wrong. It's right.
Yeah. By itself, sitting there, you would look at it and go, "Yeah, I'm not touching that." But you put it on a burger or some fries, and it's heaven. All right, enough.
I believe you.
It is an
artery. I was just checking the live chat and watching all the people tuning out at this point who were expecting to hear about UFOs. So sorry, folks.
No,
it shouldn't work, but magical. It kind of describes Skinwalker Ranch, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Sure.
Good segue.
Yeah.
Brather's always here with the good segues. So let's get into it. Okay. So Jimmy, the reason why we were late is because we're having a discussion behind the scenes that you haven't seen the show yet. So this is going to be kind of interesting to talk about it and get your perspective on things, because I know you know the history of Skinwalker Ranch. You know the players. You know the history or the preface before the show, and so it's gonna be incredibly fun to have you here. So thanks for joining us, man. This is a really pleasant surprise. So let's start right at the top, shall we? New season, very exciting. Right out of the gate, Brandon Fugels, of course, landing in the helicopter. The typical, entrance for Mr. Fugel. But the cool thing I thought was that he had the governor of Utah with him, and so I guess we'll start there. Let's start with Rather. We'll work our way around the panel here. What did you think from the first start? I mean, I love that the governor's there. A real state official, not like an assembly leader or a mayor, like the governor.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It adds a certain amount of credibility to the ranch and the show. It's a little unclear exactly what his role is and how he's going to be helpful. But I think it's cool to see more government involvement and it being taken seriously.
Dan, what do you think?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, because what happened to the governor? We introduced him. They showed him the creepy planes, right, from the National Science Center, I want to say. So maybe could they have been there because the governor was there? That was I
asked Brandon last night. He's like, no, I don't think that was the coincidence there. But the idea that the one thing that stuck out that the governor said that I found interesting is I don't know if he could do anything as far as the discussion is concerned, but I did like the idea of him being just curious enough to come on the ranch, curious enough to a point where he would sign a waiver to get on there. And also one thing that he said that stuck out was one of the reasons why he's there is because it's a potential national security interests.
And do you know, someone's saying here that it was a former governor, not the current governor. Do you know if that's
true
correct?
too, because they filmed it last year. The current, I just looked it up. The current governor of Utah, Spencer Cox. So I'm assuming that was probably happened before the elections in November. So it was probably filmed last summer, and they're editing it and putting it out this year.
No.
What did I get that wrong, Jess?
Oh, that was one of the most fascinating things for me. And I was really hoping Dragon was going to be here because I wanted to pin down the date.
He's going to be here next week.
The appearance of the governor was the second most fascinating thing for me. The most fascinating thing was the plane, which I'm sure we're going to get to shortly. But the former governor and Brandon Fugel have a very long history together. They've been doing tons of things. There is Brandon Fugel, as I'm sure most of you know, is a huge real estate developer who does tons of things for Utah. He is the person who developed and refurbished a huge project. I got the name right here. A huge building, which is actually a portion of it is the Gary R. Herbert Institute of Public Policy. And if you go through and look, they have done so many things together, charitable work, trying to attract new businesses. They're old friends, and they've done a lot of stuff together. Almost all of it that I can see is very admirable. So I wasn't surprised to see him show up on the show because, he's been hand in hand, with the developers of the show for a long time on other things. And it's only natural he would do that. And I was happy to see him doing it.
Yeah, he did attend Brigham Young University, and he was the governor in Utah from 2009 to 2021. So he had a pretty good run there. But Cristina, what did you think?
My impression is that he will feature more in later episodes, and he said that he knows people, and if the data is shared with him, he will get eyes on the data to further the cause. And the fact that he was there the first few minutes of the show along with Mr. Fugel, I'm sure will raise eyebrows in DC also. So that has to be a good thing in the long run. At least I hope so.
Yeah, I think our presence on the ranch isn't going to hurt. I think the more curious our elected officials are, the better. But Jimmy, I mean, what do you think? I know you didn't see it, but like the idea of the governor going to Skinwalker Ranch,
that's
friend or not.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fascinating. And you always want to do that on the first episode, right? The beginning of a season, something like that. That's impressive. My take is, because I haven't seen the show, and one of the reasons for that, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, is that it's a time thing for me, and I want something to feel like it's going to go somewhere and resolve. And if I don't get that vibe, I've got other stuff that I'm going to watch. It's a time management thing. So here we have the season premiere yesterday. And the governor, and now what are they laying out? And this is my question to everybody here. Was there something last night that was presented that is going to be part of the investigation moving forward? And is it going to concentrate on the paranormal and the supernatural on the ground? Or is this going to involve, our friends, from outer space and ET? Is that element going to come into play, or is it going to stay with, parallel worlds and vortexes and the elements that have been reported about Skinwalker for years, which I'm totally fascinated with? I just want to see something, and I'm hoping for that. So I'm going to throw that back out to everybody. Do you think that something like this is going to be caught on tape? I'm going to throw this to Jazz first. Jazz?
Yeah, go for
it. It's your show, Lou, but I haven't.
Yeah, no. Hey, man, look, I'm not gonna say no to Jimmy Church taking over the show and using those skills to work here. Go for it, Jazz. What do you got?
Welcome to the Jimmy Church Show, folks. By the way, I've been on with Jimmy once before, on his other show besides this one. Yeah, I do think there's a good chance.
Oh man,
that I do think there's a good chance we're gonna see a bit more than people might be expecting from what was shown. But I also think they dropped out some nuggets in the first episode that sent me down a rabbit hole today.
Right.
And the reason I'm really disappointed that Dragon isn't here, I'm trying to nail down the date when the governor was there because I'm filing a Freedom of Information request with one government agency that was allegedly involved. They identified a plane that was flying back and forth in a search pattern over Skinwalker Ranch while the governor was there. And I went today after watching the show a couple of times, and I went back and checked in Brandon Fugel's Instagram feed and also the ex-governor's Twitter feed. And I've narrowed it down. They filmed that somewhere between October 22nd and November 3rd of last year. But before I file my FOIA request, I would like to get the exact date, because if you have a really solid date, that makes it a much shorter search and you get a lot better results for things like that. But yeah, they had something remarkable with an apparent, and I want to hear it from the government because that's what I do. You know what I do. I want to hear if they had a plane there from the National Science Foundation. That's a government institution that's funded by the taxpayers. If they had a plane over there, you're allowed to ask what the plane was doing there, and that's what I'm doing. So hopefully we'll find that out. But yeah, they had some really bizarre stuff, I thought, in the first episode, and they documented it pretty well. Like, for everybody who watched it, sorry, Jimmy, the thing about tracking the sensors they had when they took the helicopter up, right? And they're throwing them, and they're going in unexpected directions, and their GPS is just giving totally bogus data, and they seem very legitimate in reporting that. And I guess there's a common explanation for that, maybe, but it was weird. So I was impressed overall. I'll just say I found the stuff they were talking about to be really curious, definitely worthy of a deeper look. And they touched on things outside of the show that I think everybody watching should be able to go and ask questions and maybe investigate further, whether or not they cover them later in the season or not, because they're giving us some breadcrumbs that I think we can chase, and they involve government agencies. And I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed the heck out of the show. And I think the possibility, I don't think we're going to see Skinny Bob, but I think they're showing more than you're getting out of a lot of other shows so far.
Yeah, and well, I'll just say real quick, just first of all, I should probably preface this whole show, big time spoilers. Like, we're gonna go through the whole show and tell you exactly what happens. So if you don't want to,
you haven't watched it except for Jimmy, shut it off.
Yeah, shut it off and go watch it. But what I will say is that's a good point, and Dragon will be here next week to help us review episode 2. But I'll shoot also Brandon a text and see if there's an exact date we can get, because I know the plane, it was a G5 plane, and it was doing search patterns over the ranch while the governor was there. It was actually the first dramatic moment that happened on the show. They stopped the roundtable meeting while the governor's sitting there, and Eric Bard's like, I gotta go. Then he runs to the command center and he calls everybody into the command center. And then there was a pattern, that they saw this G5 plane doing. I mean, we've talked to these guys. Everything they say that happens on the show is real, but I'll be honest with you. The way they edited some of the parts of this show felt unnatural. And this is not staged, but it just felt, it felt jumbly. It didn't feel like possibly staged. Yes. But I don't want to say staged only because we've talked to these guys and they don't stage things on the ranch. That's not their thing. And I got, I'm going to trust them until we find proof otherwise. But yeah, the way they edited like 2 scenes in particular, this was one of them where I was like, that feels a little forced, but the information was cool. They got a picture of the plane. They got a tail number. It was from the National Science Foundation, so it's an official government plane, just like Jazz said. So these are FOIA-able things. And
did
if
they
we
show
get a
that
date,
in the show? Because I missed it, Lou.
They blurred it out.
Did they get an actual photo?
They did. They knew exactly where the plane came from.
Okay,
so
I missed it.
Yeah,
That was
they've
one of
got.
the
It's
questions
just
I
they
had for
didn't.
Dragon.
They blurred it out. I guess for I don't privacy purpose. I have no idea why they blurred it out. It's a government plane, but maybe there's a good reason for that. But yeah.
Well, when Jane, let me jump in real quick because when Jane brought this up earlier, she caught my attention. She said, what's up with this plane? And if it turns out, back to Jane's point, if this is a National Science Foundation plane on the day that the governor is there when they are filming, that's beyond coincidence. One. Number two, what is the government doing in any capacity over a private ranch and the funding that is involved there? Jane, what do you think is going on?
Well, what's weird is it kind of reminded me of the Stephenville Lights incident, which was 2008 here in Texas, increasingly difficult to find out information on. Much easier to research back in the day, of the strange lights in formation, or one big ship potentially that was headed toward, at the time, President George Bush's ranch, Crawford Ranch.
Yes.
I know this is a plane, not a UFO. But maybe there's expected UFO activity. Maybe there's expected activity with the governor being there, and he's of national security interest. The activity at the ranch is of national security interest. So, but I'm a little bit stumped though on exactly what they were, if they were doing 3D mapping and trying to collect imagery of. Maybe and did they expect to be seen by everybody on the ranch and filmed because they know that there was filming going on, right? Because they could have gone on another day when there wasn't a camera crew, right? Or so. But I'm still a little stumped though of where this story's going. So hopefully we'll learn more in upcoming episodes.
I mean, they theorized that it was possibly a LiDAR mapping sort of pattern that they were doing, but I mean, rather, Cristina, any thoughts on sort of that?
Well, I was gonna say,
Sure.
along with everything that y'all are mentioning, for me, I'm most interested in the possibility of there being intermittent portals appearing above the ranch. And my theory as to what happened to those GPS units that they were throwing out of the helicopter is that there are warps in space-time occurring due to those micro wormholes being present, or latent temporary wormholes. So maybe that is what the National Science Foundation aircraft was up to, looking for those things. So for me, they got right into the meat and potatoes at the very beginning of the show, and portals and wormholes really fascinate me, and I think that we will get to see a bunch more of that type of stuff in future episodes.
Just real quick, Large Marge is asking, is Lou petting an animal? What is
Your
Lou
mouth.
stroking? I swear there's no animal unless you want to consider this an animal. But what do you think?
The mouse.
It's a mouse.
Yeah, it was very frustrating to me because, I mean, they make such a big deal about this plane flying overhead, but they do absolutely no follow-up or investigation on what this plane is. It seems like they could call up the NSF and be like, hey, what is this plane flying around for? And it'd be interesting if the NSF dodged that question or something. But my guess is that it would probably be pretty apparent to find out exactly what that plane is doing. There are some people that did some research on the internet, and there are things like paleontology excavations that were, planned out there by the NSF. So I think there's a lot of legitimate things that it could have been doing. If you want to get a little conspiratorial, I was in the back of my mind thinking, I wonder if the production crew knew that this plane was going to be up there and scheduled, the governor to be there at that time. Because I don't think it was really that
for sure
much of a secret
that's not
mission.
the case. That's not the case because, according to Brandon Fugel, when I was texting with him last night, I don't think he'll mind me sharing this part of the conversation. I asked sort of the same thing, and he said no, only because it was very difficult to schedule the governor, and the schedule, it changed multiple times, even right up to almost when he was supposed to be there. So that would have been impossible to sort of schedule between production and the National Science Foundation. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and dispel that. Yeah. Well, let's get into the next part of it, which was I think this was my favorite part of the whole show, and I cannot wait to see what data comes out of this. And that's the new camera systems that they set up. So they set up these, I believe it was, what do you got?
Can we do one more thing on the plane?
Yeah, please. What do you got? Yeah.
Because I mean, that's huge. Because again, I can't stress this enough. You know me, you know how I work. You know what my instincts are. And
hey, Jazz, can I jump in? Can you move your microphone down to your mouth?
Why?
Down.
I moved it up before because on another show somebody told me if I move it down too far,
move it down.
Move it down a little. Yeah, a little more, maybe a little more.
A little more.
Okay, I got chastised by another host and said you got to move your mic way up, man. It's way too loud.
No, the louder Jazz is,
the plane thing. The reason I was hoping Dragon was going to be on because I was doing research all day and I was digging into Brandon Fugel's recent social media posts going back to last summer, and I've narrowed down when they filmed that to a period of about 2 weeks. I was hoping he could identify the exact time, because if you have an exact date, it makes your FOIA request a lot easier. But I'm FOIAing this tomorrow. If we don't have Dragon tonight, I'm going to go with what I have. I've got it down to about 2 weeks.
Why don't you just reach out to Dragon on Twitter? He'll hit you back. He's pretty good with getting back to people.
I've tried. He never answered.
I'll
yell at him.
The question is, who was on that plane? It's a G5.
Right.
I don't think you're doing LiDAR or it's used for scientific purposes. It's a G5.
It's very expensive plane.
It's a G5. It's an executive aircraft. You know who likes G5s?
Rappers.
Lou Elizondo. I think...
they were definitely doing a scientific mission though, because they were doing a
just let me finish, please. I went through the whole history of stuff that wasn't talked about on the show. Okay, stuff that Brandon Fugel was doing, stuff the governor was doing, stuff they've been involved in together, and stuff with the NSF. The NSF is subject to FOIA. It's not hard to get this information.
Right.
I'm going to get it. And if they answer quickly enough, I'll have it by the 3rd episode at the most, because they are not exempt from FOIA like some places like the Department of Energy are. They're a taxpayer-funded agency. You guys own that plane. You guys own the data it collects. And unless they can come up with a national security defense to say, oh, we don't want to tell you, if you ask, they have to tell you it's your damn plane. Okay? And I know who to ask. And I'm going to have that out tomorrow morning. I, for some reason, thought Dragon was going to be on tonight. If you could get it down to the exact date, I could have done it better for you. But I can narrow it down to 2 weeks right now. And there are a number of reasons the NSF could have had a plane over there at any given time, because they do science studies. That's a scientifically interesting area for a number of reasons. It could have been a coincidence. But does it sound like a coincidence?
No.
My thought about the plane was, we're in a period right now, and when they were filming that, we were into the period where the government has set up this new office, and they're like, AOI MSG, we're going to be collecting data wherever we can get it. And now here's this high-profile place where a couple of very respected people are saying, oh yeah, we're seeing UFOs all the time. Is there a possibility later in the show we're going to find out that they wanted to send somebody to go, oh, well, here's a place where UFOs show up a lot. Let's go collect some data with a really expensive plane, but we don't want the military to do it. So we'll send this scientific group to do it. And they have every right to fly over there if they want to. And they have enough technology. So that's my question to take forward before we move on to the next thing. I think the plane was probably there. I'm going to demand an answer as to why it was there and what reports they filed. But it is really curious. That was the agency that had a plane over there right when they were filming. And I found that really curious.
And it's not cheap. It's not cheap to put a G5 in the air. That's a very deliberate position.
They have a really generous budget. I looked into that today too.
And something interesting to note is that the National Science Foundation was established in May of 1950 by none other than Dr. Vannevar Bush, which should ring bells for those UFO researchers familiar with reverse engineering and secret UFO study group allegations. So I think that's something that really caught my attention when doing the research after the show was finished.
Good point.
Yep.
Rather, what were you saying about the pattern?
Oh yeah, it was clearly doing a scientific mission because it was doing a going back and forth in a grid search. So it wasn't just some scientist chartering a plane to A to B.
Well, the last thing I'll say on this also that I found really interesting was Brandon's brother, who's the pilot of the helicopter, who knows his aerial, spaces very well. And he's like, for the plane to operate at 40,000 feet, which is where it was,
45.
Or 45, in that manner, they would have had obviously to get permission from the FAA and making sure that flight controls and all the surrounding airports knew that they were going to be doing that in that area for that time. The thing I found curious, though, is I would think at 45,000 feet, you would hear a G5. I feel like the mics would have picked it up. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I mean, that's pretty far. It's not like a huge airliner. So, that was the one thing. I guess that's part of the reason why I felt a little bit like, did that really happen? I felt like maybe we would have heard that jet picked up on some mics, but I could be totally wrong on that.
But what data were they collecting though, Luis?
That's a great question.
At 45,000 feet, unless you've got some really, really good cameras, you're not getting a lot of detail from the ground at 45,000 feet, but you might have radar data. You might have other more sensitive systems. And we're talking about a science group that has access to, all sorts of technology.
A huge budget.
Were they looking for ancient paleontological sites?
Do we know that it was 45,000 feet, Chaz?
Yep.
We don't know that yet. That's part of my FOIA request.
That's
but that's what was said on the show.
That's 15,000 feet above cruising.
That's way
high.
Above commercial levels.
Yeah, that's high. Wow.
Yeah, but that's what they. That's the height they gave on the
license
show.
plate from space, But what does that plane have? We don't know yet, and that's why I want to file a FOIA.
Well, unless they know exactly what they're looking for. What if it wasn't 3D radar readings like they assumed on Skinwalker Ranch? What if it was something else entirely?
Zenzabel
could be looking for magnetic anomalies.
Yeah. Zenzabel has a great comment. It says Gulfstreams have been fitted out with signals intelligence equipment, and they do short range in the USA data collection and monitoring. So, I mean, I think Jazz is right on the button. We're not going to really know until we get it through FOIA, and it's very FOIA-able. And I think
it's going in tomorrow, my friends.
Yeah, well, I think
have no reason to deny us. None.
That's exactly right. I think the excuses are non-existent because, like you said, it's not a national security issue. All right, so let's get to these cameras because they set up a whole bunch of new cameras on the ranch, and I think this was my favorite part only because I feel like it's like finally we've got cameras in 5 different parts of the ranch, including on top of the mesa, that shoot in 360 degrees all around the ranch. So I think that camera system, and it's not going anywhere. It's staying there inevitably, or as they said, it's going to be there for the season, and it's going to continue to stay there once the season's done filming. So I found that exciting because I think having those camera systems, you can triangulate things that they see in the sky. Really, that's the most exciting thing for me is just triangulation of unidentified things that they see in the sky, which they've gotten footage of all the time. They even got a little bit of footage. We'll talk about it in a second. Actually, that's the next thing I want to talk about. But I'm curious, what did you guys think of the new camera systems that they set up? We'll start with Cristina. Go for it.
No, go to someone else next, please.
Okay. I love when Cristina does that.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Because
I'm on the edge of my seat. Rather.
Yeah, I kind of glossed over that part. More cameras, the better. I think.
They didn't show anything. They didn't show anything, right, from the cameras yet.
They didn't show anything from the cameras yet. No, they have not.
So it's a tease.
It's a tease, but what I like is that it's a constant experiment that they're going to have on the ranch, which is kind of rare. We don't get a lot of those things. So I'm curious to know if their new web portal will be in sort of injected into those camera systems. I wonder if you'll be able to switch camera systems on that new web portal that Brandon was talking about when he was here last time on the new website. That would be amazing if they would live streaming those 5 camera systems that you could switch between. You
That'd be
know,
awesome.
that'd be awesome.
And hopefully the
Could I
cameras are kind of hopefully they're kind of overlapping, so you can do that triangulation, because otherwise it is kind of useless, right?
Right. Well, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was from last year. They had an incident on the helicopter where the I can't remember the name of the instrument that went off, but it basically tells you
The altimeter,
how
I
far
believe.
the altimeter. Yeah, it
The
tells you
altimeter.
how far away you are from the ground. It gives you a little alert when you get within, I think, 40 feet, 20 feet, something like that. And last year, that altimeter went off while they were doing an experiment on the ranch, and they wanted to do another experiment very similar to that this first episode. And so they wanted to check with Brandon's brother, the pilot, the helicopter pilot, to make sure that he felt safe and that it was something that he was comfortable doing. And they showed him some footage from last season of
Oh yeah.
this was, I think, my least favorite part of the show, because when I saw this, I was like, oh, that's a bug. Like,
Okay,
that's a bug
Yeah.
flying across the screen, right? Like, I was hoping you guys were kind of feeling the same thing. But here's the beautiful thing about this new camera system is that if that altimeter goes off again and you've got 5 camera systems, you don't have to rely on a production company camera to maybe pick up what might have been underneath the helicopter. And you would have been, again, able to triangulate. With this, we only had one piece of footage. It was from a production company, so they had to zoom in on it. And I'll be honest with you, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's a bug. That's just, I feel like that's the show kind of amping up the drama of the show and just filling in with something there. When I personally, and once we get into it, I felt like you could have used that 5 minutes of TV time to maybe focus on something else. Like, for example, the canisters that they were making. I would have loved to have seen what kind of instruments were going inside those canisters. But before we get to that, I'm curious to know what you guys thought. We'll start with Rather. What did you think of the object underneath the helicopter?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need another video camera. If another video camera from another angle showed something moving across like that, then yeah, wow, that's amazing. But it really did look like just a bug. And also, they didn't really correlate the timestamps between when the altimeter was, saying there's something below them and when that camera was going, showing something flying through real fast.
That's a good point.
So it didn't seem that credible to me at all.
Jane, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it was a bug. I've just seen a lot of bugs. I've seen more bugs than alien spaceships. Let's just say.
Yeah.
But that said, I don't want to jump to too many conclusions. They may have other sources of information that led them to think it was anomalous that we're not aware of, and so maybe that's something we can ask Dragon, or maybe that's something that would be on the website, skinwalker-ranch.com. But yeah, I think it was a bug.
Can I ask everybody a question? This is interesting about this bug. And when it sounds like immediately you guys determined that was a bug, right? Well, why put it in the show? You've got editors, you've got people, you've got executive producers that are all watching the processes through this. Don't they know that it's a bug? And what isn't that criticism that's going to apply back to the show? And so maybe it wasn't a bug. Jazz, did you see the bug? Did you see the bug?
Oh, I watched that section several times. I guess I'm going to be the outlier here.
Okay. Well, that's why we talk about it.
Right.
Because no, everybody had, we can all interpret it. However we see fit.
Just a gut reaction. Really.
I do agree. There's been a lot of videos where one of my videos on my YouTube channel of when one of the Tic Tacs came over, this videographer I gave it to found something moving in a weird way going down. It was clearly a bug, but it showed up in the slow-mo. That shouldn't be that hard to identify, really. So I think what they showed, this black or very dark streak that showed up multiple times underneath the helicopter at the same time that they're saying their altimeter went from being 6,000 feet to 40 feet, right? Now we have to ask one or two questions. Either there was something there that we don't know what it is yet, but it was fouling up the equipment. And it was giving them readings like, oh my God, you're only 40 feet off the ground. There's an alarm going off, but you're clearly 6,000 feet off the ground, right? So then there was something strange there. The only other possibility to me is the show's a total hoax. And you're willing to sit up and go, oh, the equipment didn't fail. There was a bug, and they lied about it. They lied about what the altimeter said. To me, those are really the only two things,
Right.
because they're making a huge deal out of this. They made a huge deal out of it last season. They're making a huge deal out of it now. Are we going to sit here and say, okay, this is worse than Finding Bigfoot, and you lied about this whole conversation about what the altimeter said, because that was a huge thing. If you're willing to say that, then there's really no sense in doing many more reviews of the show, in my opinion. But I don't think so. I think it could have been a bizarre equipment malfunction, right? Possibly. But the people that are experts in that equipment don't seem to think that happens very often. So I think I found it a lot more credible than most of you do. And if it was a bug, I agree with Jimmy. Why would you put it in the show?
It opens
unless
your
it's all fake. I don't see it.
There may be other. Because it's a data. Because like there's no such thing as a coincidence. I mean, that is a little bit how science works. You're like trying to figure out the correlations, trying to figure out the causation. It's even if it was a bug, it actually might be more difficult to prove it's a bug than we realize. I don't know the quality of the footage, right? I mean, bugs just essentially have a different frame rate, and so they don't translate, and they look wild, and they do just genuinely get mistaken as UFOs all the time. All I'll say is that if that's not a bug, I've got lots and lots more videos that you guys will like, because I see videos like this all the time. So that means maybe we are being invaded, but I do see videos like that all the time. And also, it didn't look to be under the plane to me, just visually, just my reaction to the footage. Now, I don't have access to all the information. This might be something in the database, the Skinwalker Ranch database, where somebody like me could go in. Maybe I could download the footage and do some analysis on, that's what I would typically do if a witness sent this to me. I wouldn't actually write it off right away, especially if there was something else corroborating it, but I would be able to look at it in an editor and slow it down and change the filter and things like that, but I just can't. So I have to go just my gut reaction, I guess. Yeah.
Well, Cristina, I hear that, but I will just say, bugs don't set off altimeters.
No, they don't.
But here's the thing. But
a bug.
That's agreed. That's agreed. But there was no. But there was like Rather was saying, there was no proof. They didn't correlate the footage that they showed with the altimeter going off and saying, "Hey, this is the time that bug or that object went under the helicopter. This is the time the altimeter went off." I feel like from a production level, you can line those two things up very easily and actually put some compelling evidence there. I think from just being an actor in Hollywood, watching a lot of TV shows and knowing the channel we're watching, they're not, and I think this is some of the weaknesses of the show. Sometimes they will put things on there that I think they don't verify enough. And because it's sensational, because it's fun, because it's possible that this could have been the thing that set off the altimeter. And that's the way they pitched it. They didn't pitch it as fact. But I think those are the moments where, for me, I think you could easily have spent the 5 minutes concentrating on other things. I'm sorry, Cristina, what were you going to say?
Well, how big was it? And Cristina, did you see the bug? Oh, I just called it a bug. Did you see the object?
I didn't interpret it as a bug. The whole segment of the show for me, again, represents the possibility of portals and warps in space-time. So maybe through some kind of lensing, they were registering the ground through a wormhole lens. And guess I'm looking into the realms of the fantastic here for answers by default. But in the last season, when that was occurring, because we've had this occur a few times, I think that rather than being a cloaked craft under the helicopter, I wonder if they were just registering the ground. And as for the footage, when it went by too fast for those periods when they were registering the altimeter readings showing ground level about 40 feet away for extended times. So there I have a lot more questions than answers with that small segment, and I'm not really leaning towards that it's a bug, just because we were able to see a few still shots, and usually with bugs that are caught on camera, you're able to see that slight flutter of the wings, just slightly, sometimes like a jitter sometimes. In this case, I didn't see that, but just like Jane, because I don't have the footage and I can't place it into programs to put in filters and look at it in more detail, it is a bit more difficult to decipher what it really was.
I never saw an object, just for the record. They had a black streak that went underneath the helicopter. There was no object that I saw, and I went back and rewound it several times because I'm looking at it on Amazon Prime. It was a momentary flash. There was something dark that went underneath it. Could that have been a bug up close? I guess maybe. I didn't see an object, so we can't even identify a shape. So I honestly don't know. I can't just say bug, because a bug would go right in front of the lens to be that clear.
Right.
If there's a big black streak underneath the helicopter at a distance when it's being zoomed. Again, I'm not Mick West, so I can't do the sequel thing.
Well, when
either a bug or a giant invisible rod-shaped craft that went under there that nobody saw, right? That they only cause the altimeters.
What about a hawk with his wings back, going into a dive?
Like
yeah.
Much more likely,
the whole thing is like, I just feel like if you're gonna try and suggest that claim, just make the next easy step and see, okay, well, can we correlate this footage with the altimeter going off? That's so easy. And I don't know why a producer wasn't like, hey, we should do this. Like, if we're going to talk about this, let's do this. And I think, I think that's just that's where the drama of the show comes. That's where the entertaining. Yeah, go for it. That's where the entertaining aspect of the show comes in. So, for me, again, going back to those camera systems, if we had those 5 cameras last year, this would be a moot point, because then we could look at the helicopter, look at it from 5 angles and really sync it up and see, okay, is this black, streak across the screen, is it getting picked up by the other 5 cameras? And if so, now we're cooking. Like, now we've got something that is really sensational, phenomenal, or just interesting at the worst case scenario.
Way too vague.
Yeah, it was very vague. And I think that was my issue with it. I just wanted some more details on it. And if you were not going to give us details, then use that time to give us details on other things, which kind of segues into the next thing, which is the GPS tracking experiment, which I'm gonna listen to you guys. I won't pass it off to Cristina because she hates getting the baton first. But let's start with Jazz. I'm curious what you thought of this experiment as a whole. What did you like about it, and what did you want to see maybe done differently with it, if there was anything?
If we're talking about the GPS portion of it, and that was one of the more fascinating parts of the show, I'll remind everybody, I'm a radar guy. Okay, I'm an electronics communications guy. I'm not a satellite GPS guy.
Right.
I don't know how often GPS fails that badly. I really couldn't tell you. I'm the wrong tech person to talk to about this. It did seem weird. And this, I hate to keep circling back to the same thing I pointed out before about the plane and everything else. But if they have the gear out there, whatever the gear is required, to do GPS tracking with sensors, and you can send them across the ground, you can send them up in the helicopter, you can throw them out of balloons, track them when they come down. If they always work right there, How do those work? Do they rely on satellites? Do they rely strictly on ground-based equipment? I don't know the answer to that. But the fact, if it's a fact, that they had all these sensors, and they take them up in the helicopter, and suddenly the helicopter is in the wrong place, and they don't know. They had missing time or something. I don't know. It was a really weird segment. But then they're looking down. Okay, we see the triangle. They're throwing the sensors out. They're going down. And they say, oh, they're going off in all these weird directions. They find 2 out of, what was it, 50?
Yeah, at least 20 or 30 of them. I would think
it was
somewhere
a lot,
around there. Yeah, it was a lot.
And then they go back and they show us the data later, and they go, this is totally messed up because we don't know where that's either proof, if they can substantiate it, that something weird is going on because reliable technology shouldn't do that. Or I can't get away, and feel free to criticize me, I can't get away from the idea that if I go driving with my wife out through areas out in the mountains where we go up on vacation, my phone drops dead. There's a lot of places where there's just nothing. This is the middle of nowhere. How reliable is their GPS at that point? I'm not sure. I'm going to turn this over. That's my 2 cents. I don't know. Was that something mysterious and a portal blocking things? Or was that, dude, you're out in the middle of a desert where you can't even get a cell phone signal. Maybe your GPS drops out. Anybody else?
Who's got thoughts? Rather, what do you got?
Well, yeah, that was my kind of thoughts too, is that they don't do any control experiments, right? Take these things up and drop them off somewhere else and see, if they behave like they expect them to behave. Just doing one experiment really doesn't tell you anything. And I guess, one of my other grievances with this was, man, you're doing this cool thing, taking the helicopter off and getting these 50 analytics things in there. Why not put a couple different sensors in there, or put some LED lights on there, or do something other than just GPS position tracker? I don't really know what they think that they're going to be able to glean from just GPS data. It'd be a wasted opportunity, I think, to put some more sensors in there and get some more interesting data.
I hate to interrupt, but can I just agree with Rather? I forgot to mention it. They threw all these things out there, and they went with helicopters looking for brightly colored flags in the desert from a helicopter. You've got all this other gear, and one of the first things that crossed my mind was, wouldn't you have put a little pinger in there so if you did lose one, well, we've got a sensor and we'll go track it down and find it. How did you lose that many? That seemed a little weird to me.
Well, I think
you did all this other gear, just put a pinger on there.
The pinger was supposed to be the GPS. At least that's the way I was thinking of it. But Cristina, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Lou, where that GPS was also meant to help them decipher where it is. But we do need to keep in mind that we see less than an hour of video in the show. And I mean, they must do so much that we don't get to see on screen. And then the editors and producers cut and splice that, one, they think is good entertainment and thrill value, and 2, cut out what they think is boring, because we have to keep in mind, while us in the community love the science, it's not really made for us. It's made for the general public that wants to be entertained as their number one factor.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Here's the other thing, though, and Lou, Jad, everybody here is pointing out the same thing, is that why not have this data collection definitively put together, measured, and analyzed? And I'll tell you something. Brandon is a real estate guy. One little piece of this, Lou, like this streak, gets proven, and they bring this forward. Brandon builds the Skinwalker Hotel and Casino.
You think he's going to put a casino on that land?
I'm just saying. That's what I would. I mean, you would have one of the most popular places on planet Earth. Yeah. That's what this data does. I'm cracking a joke about the hotel and casino. Well, it's not a bad idea, Brandon. Give me a call. But
I'd
but
probably go.
correlate this data. I mean, measure this data, and that's what science is about. It's about measurement. You know, put this together and let's see what's up. I think it's fascinating.
But we don't get to see all that they do. Maybe they are doing this tests 3, 4, 5 times, but who wants to actually watch that as an entertainment standpoint? So we simply don't know if they're doing this test more than once.
Jazz does. Jazz wants to see it.
Well,
I agree with Cristina. I think a lot of stuff does get left on the cutting room floor. Obviously, Luis works in television. You know that. But it still keeps, for me, and I know I sound like a broken record, it keeps revolving back again and again to the first question I asked. Do we think that we're being shown something as a product for television that is based on reality, but they're not either getting enough information for people who are being really introspective and looking, or they just don't have time to show it? Alternatively, are they lying? Or are the people who made the show trying to be truthful, but the producers are putting out something they've hyped up massively against the will of Brandon and Dragon and everybody else? You know, and I think that's what it all boils down to for me. We don't know the answer to that question yet. And that's why I want to watch this show and go start filing FOIA requests and get the government to weigh in. And maybe before the end of the season, we'll have some data we can bring forward and ask Brandon and Dragon and go, well, here's what the government said, you know, and maybe they'll agree, or maybe they'll say, no, that's nonsense. But I think this is such an interactive show that investigators in this community, we have the opportunity to actually participate as it goes forward. And I'd like to be part of that participation. So that's my place.
I agree with Cristina up to a point where they don't, we only get an hour. There's probably, for each episode, there's got to be easily 15 to 20 hours per episode that they film, that they got to whittle down to an hour. So that's why I was like, I think you could cut the bug segment if most of us agree it's a bug. And I would have loved to have seen them building those units. Here's what we're doing. We're taking this pill and we're stuffing it with a GPS. We're stuffing it with this instrument. We're stuffing it with this instrument. It's going to fall from this height, going this speed, and show us what's in there. Because if we know what the GPS tracking unit is, maybe we can find out, hey, how often do these GPS tracking units fail? How do they work? Do they work actually from the satellite systems like you were saying, Jazz? Or do they work from the ground-based operation systems? I think those things are valuable. Why are you laughing? You laughing at me?
Yes, I am. Because you and I have completely switched positions in society, in the industry and all that. Because I'm sitting there now, and I've never worked in TV like you have, you know, and I'm thinking, wow, why don't we put on a show that we have, what's the amount of time minus commercials, 46 minutes?
Yeah.
Why don't we spend 15 minutes watching somebody assembling some electronics inside of a tube?
That's not what I'm saying.
You're explaining.
No,
and here's
stop,
how
Jazz,
the radiology works.
Stop.
I'm sorry.
You could have.
Has to be at least 20 minutes.
At least 20 minutes. No, but what I am saying is the time you could have taken that you took to explain what was under the helicopter, which was about 4 to 5 minutes, you could have easily had cut that and filled those 4 or 5 minutes with what are the tools and instruments that we're using. I think that's interesting, and I think that's where the show kind of misses the boat. I think that is entertaining. It doesn't have to be a 20-minute drone on about what we're doing. It's just like, hey, this is this is the Dragon, and this is what we're building. Here's what we're putting into it, and because when they do the Curse of Oak Island, or when they do the gold digging shows or whatever, anytime there's a problem that they run into, there's always like a CGI computer graphic explaining exactly what went wrong and how they're going to fix it. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to say, hey, here's the instruments that we're building. Here's how it works. And here's a computer graphic to make you understand it easier. So that way it's and this is how we lost, 28 out of 30 of them.
So that might be why, but to the difficulty of the editor, right? That maybe they have all that footage and then it was kind of like a letdown, and or maybe Eric Bard was describing a lot more of the risks of Skinwalker Ranch beyond just that one UFO / potential bug / potential spaceship. And was sharing a lot of other risks at the time with Cameron before they flew up. But the producer, the editor goes in there, they need the pacing to be right and everything to flow. I think it's really challenging. I mean, we make YouTube videos, a lot of us, and it's challenging to balance like all the detail and science and information that you want to share with your audience, but then also keep them engaged and able to synthesize it. I also just want to say, like, to Jazz earlier, I don't think that it's deception. I mean, maybe it's not a bug, and I'm just completely wrong.
I think it's as simple as a creative choice.
Yeah, and misidentifications just happen all the time too. They're just.
Can we ask Cristina, please? Yeah. Because I think there's 4 of the 6 of us who all are so deep into the tech and everything behind this and the investigations that we want to know about those tech details. But I think there's a lot of people out there that you want to put butts in seats watching the show. Cristina, would you rather hear a tech expose, or do you want to see that black line go across the screen in case there is a portal there and something weird that shot across the screen and suddenly the altimeter said 40 feet instead of 6,000? I think a lot of America wants the latter thing.
Again, it's a show for entertainment. We're not going to see the hard science unless a massive discovery or revelation is made. And they're cramming a summer of everything crammed into one season. And I think that for anyone that has a background in creating any types of films or any types of videos, even just like a 10-minute video, there's a lot of work that goes into it and a lot of sacrifices that need to be made when looking at, does this one look better or does this clip look better? And you got to make those decisions sometimes on the fly when you're cramming so much in a short period of time. And you want your viewers to keep coming back for more information. So I think that we need to look at this show in a more entertainment standpoint. And I keep saying this, and I know it doesn't make everyone happy, but we are not the majority. We are the minority when we are demanding these types of more scientific data. So totally maybe agree. All the data will come in the last episode. And they kind of did that last time as well. So maybe we just need to push through the season and maybe we'll get that data at the very end once all the entertainment has passed.
I've been silent. I've been silent.
Go for it, Church. Unleash, Church.
Here's the take. Cristina, the entertainment is exactly what Jazz is talking about, what Lou was talking about. That's the entertainment. So I'm the host of the show, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking in the camera, and I go, our camera's caught an anomaly as our altimeter showed that our helicopter was now at 40 feet when it was at 6,000 feet. We got our crew together to analyze the footage. What was it? Was it a portal? Was it a bug? Was it a UFO? Was it the Loch Ness Monster? Well, we're going to find out right now. That's the entertainment, and I'm at the edge of my seat. And if that didn't occur, it's a waste on the time of the producers and who is putting on this show, because this is what the show is about. And if you can finally cross that Rubicon and do what Jazz has been talking about, and Lou, and the rest of us for that matter, is go and give us what we want. We are tuned into this show for this. And by letting it go and dismissing it for something that is very simple to go and analyze to prove it one way or another, you're missing the mark and you're letting your audience down.
So then my question would be, Jimmy, what TV show have you watched in the past that has everything that you want, the entertainment and the science value? And I'm asking this as an honest question.
Sure.
Is there any kind of docu
Forensic Files?
Okay.
America Unearthed.
Okay. That's a good
The
one.
Naked and afraid.
Kardashians. Like, Jazz, you have me wrong if you think I'm watching Skinwalker Ranch for the tech. I'm not.
Well,
I'm watching it for Dragon being up there in the helicopter. That's so cool that Dragon, but are we just, Dragon got to be part of that experiment.
Oh my God.
And go up in the
Dragon,
helicopter and drop the bottles.
Every time
So
Dragon
great.
hopped out of the helicopter, Creedence Clearwater Revival was playing in my head.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
that's what I watch.
Here's what I'll say to back up Cristina a little bit, but also challenge the production company. I agree with you. It is, again, we should probably preface the show with this, and we did this last season. The editing, the producing, the direction of the show, the creative decisions have they do not ask Brandon Fugel or anybody else on the ranch, hey, what do you guys think we should do here? They just film it, they show up, and they go home and they edit it without their approval or input. So that's got to be made 100% clear. They've got nothing to do with the post-production. Yes, we know that. Yes, 100%.
Brandon has no editorial control.
He's got no editing control whatsoever on that show. I'm 100% sure of that.
Okay.
Unless, of course, maybe they caught him picking his nose or something.
Episode and talk to both him and Dragon and make sure that's true, because that guy has too much money to just go, oh, you can go trash me and make me look like a fool.
But
that doesn't sound reasonable to me.
Yeah, but they're not trashing him and making him look like a fool. I mean, he's inviting this.
If it turns out this is all fake, then they're making.
Oh no, but that's not what I'm suggesting though either. I'm not suggesting that this is fake. What I'm suggesting is that they were faced with a creative decision, just like Cristina said, and just like you said, we've got the thing that flew under the helicopter that set off on the altimeter, or we could talk about this. And what I'm saying to the production team is take a risk. Talk about the science aspect of it. Just give it a shot. See what happens for a season. I think, and if you go and let's say you investigate that bug or whatever it was a little more, and you find out, yeah, it was a bug. Great. We've got an answer on that. Awesome. Nobody looks like a fool.
I totally agree with that.
And I think the audience would appreciate that more, and it would give them a little bit more faith as into what they're watching is true. Because if I, as a viewer, have these questions, then that means other viewers have these questions as well. And all I'm saying is that I want the production company to take a chance and try and make science interesting. Because if you could do it with Oak Island for 12 seasons, and that is a pure science show. I mean, talk about the scientific method at work. It's been 11 seasons, and they get just a little bit of data each season. And it paints a little bit more of a picture. And for some people, that's unsatisfying. But for a lot of people, it's incredibly interesting because you're along in the treasure hunt. That's what I think makes the show fun. And I think that philosophy should be applied to this show as a whole. And those moments, I think, could be teachable moments and moments that I think it would shock the History Channel how much more people would appreciate that, as opposed to let's go with the blurb on the screen that we can't explain and we're really not going to dive too deep into to figure out one way or the other. We're just going to put this up here and let you, the audience, make the decision. That's just my opinion. I mean, if I was a producer of that show, that's the way I would encourage the production company to go is, hey, I think we can make this because we're launching rockets into space. How do you make that rocket? What goes into it? What are the instruments? All those things are interesting. They sound boring, but they're not. And you can shoot them in a way that makes it fun, that makes science fun. And that's like my biggest critique of the show is don't be afraid to show the steps of science. I think those are valuable. And sometimes the show will go for the more interesting thing as opposed to, the research aspect of it or the technology aspect of it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a wrong decision. And I understand why a producer would go, I think we'll go with the weird thing under the helicopter. It's way sexier. It's way more fun. Just like you said, Jazz, like that's the part I think a lot of people want to see. But I think there's also a piece of the audience that's hungry for the other aspect as well. And I would just say to the production company, take a chance, give it a shot, see what happens. Because I think you do it very well with other shows, and I think it could apply here. That's all I'm saying. Any thoughts from anyone?
I'm going right back to my point. Entertainment is entertainment, and people are dialing into this. It's a big show, and
it's the biggest show in history.
Yeah. and they're dialing in. And why not? Give them that entertainment value. When we go back to some of the shows from the 70s and the 80s, which I loved, right? Can I use bad words?
Sure.
Can I use bad words? I don't know the names.
Wait. If he's going to use bad words, no, seriously, can you just take me backstage for 1 minute?
Yeah. Do your thing. Yeah, I got you.
It is, when you're watching a show, is it bullshit or not? Right? That's the name of the show. Well, that's what we're dialing in for. So is it or not? Let's get to it. And if it was a bug, right, then what was the cause of this altimeter change? Well, you know what? There is so much entertainment value in that. And quite frankly, that puts the crew of the helicopter in danger. If they don't know what altitude they're flying at, you're in fog and you don't know, you think you're at 40 feet, you're at 6,000 feet or the opposite. That's a really big deal. That's suspense. That's entertainment. That's what we're here for.
This is precisely why we give this show 2 scores on 2 different categories. We've got the entertainment aspect of it, which I think anybody, we want to be entertained, but we've also got the science score, because look, we're not making the claims that this is a science experiment on TV. Those are the claims that are being made by the owner and the production staff. So I think it's only fair that we give the show a science score and an entertainment score. And I think you can do both. I think both are fun, so it's just finding that balance. Which one is more? And I'm not saying my way is right or anybody else's way is wrong, but that's exactly why we do 2 scores. But what are you going to say, Rather?
Yeah, even if 95 or 98% of it is BS, if there's 2% that has some really compelling data, then I'm sold. I'm going to keep on watching.
I'm in.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo.
I'm in.
Bingo. Science is boring. It really is. It takes a long time, and you're asking will we get resolutions from the show? No, I don't think we're gonna get this high definition photo of a dino beaver, but I think we'll get a lot of boring information that altogether does paint a really interesting picture, and it probably will be a lot of the people who are necessarily the target audience that pick up on that, and there could be, a lot of evidence and help toward disclosure, if you will, via this show, even if a lot of people do it for the entertainment.
Well, and that was kind of one of your things, right, Jimmy?
Sorry about that. Sorry, that was That was Dolan.
Oh, Dolan.
He wanted me to tell everybody hi. So I texted him back that, and I punched it in and said, I'll tell everybody now. I didn't realize my mic was hot.
That's all right. That's all right.
So anyway, Dolan says, what's up? Okay. So
Papa Dolan. Tell him we said hello. I'm sorry, Jane. What was the last thing you said there? You were
I'm distracted by Richard Dolan.
Yeah. Now all I've got is Papa Dolan in my head.
So was I.
God,
you were asking me a question.
Resolutions,
that's right. That's right. It was
things behind this, right?
We were talking before the show started. One of the reasons why Jimmy doesn't watch it because he doesn't feel like he's going to get a resolution, and there's a lot of stuff he's got to get to as far as visually consuming things. So I get that, and my response to that was, well, because he asked us, well, is this a show? Do you think that at some point is going to have a resolution? And it's like, okay, we figured this out. And my whole thing is that let's just propose for a moment that there is something absolutely weird about this ranch, which I think we all can kind of agree that there's something weird about this part of the world. And if that's the case, I think you could have 300 episodes of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch and not come anywhere near close to figuring out or getting an answer to anything. I think it would just be a whole bunch of compelling data that is very difficult to decipher. And I think that's part of the reason why they don't just release the data and open source it, because where are you going to store it? Who's going to decipher it? There's so many different variables to each experiment. Like, for example, the helicopter experiment that they had, I thought it was kind of I thought it was kind of funny that because the GPS in the helicopter was way off, and we could talk about that because that was an interesting moment. Like the GPS on the helicopter was telling the pilot that they were over this certain part of the ranch, the triangle part of the ranch, and they were nowhere near it. And then when they actually visually put eyes on it from the helicopter, which I found was like, I'm pretty sure that's not a very accurate way to get over something while you're in the air. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but also, like, I just found it funny that they were dropping these canisters from, what was it, 6,000 feet, and that they were flying, you know, way off target. I was like, yeah, of course they're flying way off target. They've got a tether to it that's flapping all over the wind. We don't know. See, this is the things where I'm like, we don't know the wind speed. We don't know how many canisters there were. We don't know where inside the canisters. We don't know what instruments are being used. And so these are all things where I'm like, damn, like, I wish I could kind of come to some kind of conclusion as to why they only found 28 out of 30. But from what I'm looking at, it's just like, yeah, they just, to me, like, putting blinkers on them would have been great, because at night maybe you would have saw them. That's a fantastic idea. Rather, like, why did they put little lights on them?
Did I miss something entirely? They found 28. I thought
no. They only found 2 out of 28 is what I said.
Oh, yeah. You said they found 28 out of 30.
I'm sorry, I meant 2. Yeah.
You paint them fluorescent, and you go out there with a black light, and
they were bright orange and yellow.
Like, and you put blinkers on them.
They couldn't get any brighter.
Okay,
but
Lou, I want to go back to Jane's point, which is your point, but it's Jane's. Jane brought this up, and look, if the cameras are rolling and a vortex opens up and Bigfoot steps out, and they got that captured on camera, Bigfoot disappears, vortex shrinks up, goes away. Back to Christina's point. You've got 30 years of TV waiting in front of you to go and find this vortex, to go find it again, to get this to repeat, you know, and that let's make something happen. And that's what I'm talking about. When I say resolve, I'm not saying get to the answers of Skinwalker Ranch, but give me, you know, Bigfoot stepping out of a vortex. You know, will something resolve, or is it always just one step away? It's always, you know, one step away.
Is it rude to say, Jimmy's saying, give us the money shot? The money shot doesn't have to be, oh, now we have an interview with Skinny Bob, by the way. Here he is. Right. That's what it always was. But give us the money shot. Give us something definitive. And they're not. And that's why, and I feel horrible because I know some of the guys who work on finding Bigfoot personally, you know, and it's like, it's always knocks in the wood. It's always something distant.
Yeah, it's always one step away.
It's one step away.
Exactly,
Jimmy. It's one step
what's
away.
Your fascination with Skinny Bob? It's starting to feel a little strange.
Because I think Skinny Bob isn't real, and it's never been real, and I can't prove that.
Breaking my heart.
Breaking my heart.
Jane, I think that's Jane has talked about it.
That's the best footage I've ever seen.
Okay, well, I personally think that until somebody comes forward and shows us Skinny Bob, shows us his body, I think it was fake. Okay.
I'm with you, Jess.
But let's not derail the whole show. Don't let me derail the whole show.
Yeah, back to Skinwalker Ranch, and I'm looking at this show from the perspective of Generation Z, and I talk to my college friends and peers about it, and I can promise you, they are watching it for the shock factor and the stuff that they can say damn to, you know, and chat with their friends about it. They're not watching specifically for the science. Well, some of them do like that, but I mean, I do have a few nerdy friends that like the science aspect. But for
this is a nerd show, Christina. There's a
well,
bunch
I
of
need
nerds
more
here like
science
Lou.
to make it a nerd show.
We all love that. That doesn't fill seats. You know, they want the money shot.
Well, you know, but for me, Skinwalker Ranch represents a unique coverage of phenomena, the paranormal, UFOs, and they have mentioned something unknown and possibly malevolent. So the pace of the show, the placement of the breaks, it's all meant to keep us sat in our chair and watching for the next episode. And of course, I want to see more science. Sure. Do they put enough to satisfy me? No. Will they in later episodes? I hope so. But I feel that for this first episode of the third season, they did a good job of getting straight into the experimentation rather than doing a review of previous seasons. So I was glad about that.
I like that.
Well, I will also say for me, the money shot doesn't necessarily have to be Bigfoot stepping out of a portal. I think a money shot also could include, hey, we figured out what that blur was under the helicopter, and it wasn't anything extraordinary. It's something very explainable. I think for me, both of those things are just as valuable. Both of those things for me can be add resolution or give you at least a little bit of a taste of it. It's like, okay, because that's the one thing I haven't seen on the show. Is where they saw something, they thought it was crazy, they thought it was weird, and after looking at it, after looking at the data, after cross-referencing things, they go, you know what, we got that wrong. I'd love to see that on the show, but I just don't.
Wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I just good luck convincing a producer to do that. That's why I'm doing this show, is because hopefully this review will convince producers to give it a try. Give it a try.
I
don't think it'll hurt you.
Jimmy's show again and talk about Skinny Bob. Jimmy, we got to get together and do this. But, let's move on.
Skinny Walker Bob. It's Skinny Walker Bob.
Skinny Walker Bob. That's if you see me on Jimmy's show again, that's what we're going to be talking about.
Somebody just posted that in the chat. I stole it. Skinny Walker Bob. And
we've got some questions from the chat, a couple good ones, and I've been starting your questions, guys, so we'll get to them in a second. But I just wanted to talk about the last aspect of this GPS tracking system and the data that was collected from these two units. And I'd love to start with you, Cristina, because I think you do have some opinions on sort of the tracking path of these different two GPS units. The one thing I found incredibly interesting and anomalous and kind of hard to explain was that these two GPS tracking chips that were in the same canister on the same helicopter had two completely different paths, not a whole complete, but parts of these paths were very different.
They're two separate canisters.
Two separate canisters, two separate paths as far as going up to the spot where they were going to drop them off. Of course, the path going down, they're going to be different, but the path traveling up for these canisters, one of them had it going subterranean and the other one, looked normal on the way up. So those were two really I was like, why would two GPS units literally right next to each other have that different of a reading? So I'm curious, Cristina, what were sort of your first thoughts about that? Because to me, that was the most interesting part of the experiment.
The data they collected was kind of mind-blowing. And I had a few thoughts on what could be going on. And one of them being about, again, portals and possibly showing side effects of portals or related would be evidence of wormhole lensing going into the mesa, the rock itself. That was pretty bizarre when they caught the GPS tracking of it going 50 feet below the mesa. So it makes me think they're dropping through zones of some kind of gravitational or wormhole lensing, and I wish I could be there, to be honest with you. And I would offer to parachute through the area. Like, I don't even know how to parachute, but I would do it just for the data.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, go big or go home, right? You only live once.
Yeah, we should put you on the Red Bull skydiving team, Cristina.
Yeah, this is the new Cristina. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I look, I'll be honest with you. I thought the data they collected was compelling, but part of my brain was screaming at the top of its lungs, how have we not tethered a balloon to that height with instruments on it and just leave it up there? Why do we have to go through these crazy... I mean, honestly, dropping canisters from a helicopter was one of the last things I'd ever thought I'd see them do. But once the data was collected, I was like, oh, you know what? That is kind of interesting. Okay. But like Rather said, I think you would have to repeat that experiment to really get a good line, a baseline of what the data is. And we all know they do not repeat experiments on this show, at least not on the TV show. So I doubt we're going to see another set of canisters being dumped out of the helicopter. But I still just do not understand why. It seems like one of the best experiments you could do is to get a balloon that is tethered to the ground from 3 different points, sitting at 5,000 feet above the ranch, and put all of the absolute,
that's a great idea.
all of the wonderful tools that you could use to analyze data. And nobody has to put themselves in danger. Nobody has to put a helicopter in the air with people in it. I don't know why we have not done this experiment yet. And we still got 9 more episodes. Maybe we get it this year. That would be wonderful. But I just don't know
we have been
how
able
we
to
haven't
put
done this yet.
balloons a mile in the air since World War II.
Right.
You know, that's not a stretch for anybody. It's not even expensive.
Right.
So I'm going to stop. I just want to say I agree with Lou. Why did you go to that tech when you could have just thrown a balloon up for, I don't know,
It'd be cheaper.
$1,000?
How much does it cost to fuel that helicopter? I'm assuming it's probably around the same price, if not way cheaper, for all of those instruments and a balloon and a couple of more instruments to throw on that balloon. Yeah, massively. I mean, but what, Jane? What did you think of the experiment and the data part of it?
I think, the was it the plane that they tracked going into the helicopter, or
the helicopter
going into the mountain? Yeah, that was crazy. That was, and just all the I guess could say inconsistencies or difficulties that they had during that event. And if you hadn't watched previous seasons or previous episodes, maybe that wouldn't stick out to you a lot. But it's definitely a lot of this continued phenomenon, I guess, if you will, of systems breaking down and not being able to collect evidence. And so it is starting to pique my curiosity if maybe that is something that's happening at the ranch intelligently. Of course, it's fun to go there in my brain, and I thought this was a good, I guess, poster child example of that, of a lot of things going wrong. I mean, are there portals? I'm not quite there yet, but it was intriguing. It was intriguing. And of course,
Rather, what'd you think?
The biggest thing, Dragon just getting to go along.
Yeah, Dragon hopping out of helicopters was hands down the best part of the last night's show.
Yeah, that's why they had a helicopter for that alone. But
we just need to get Cristina on the next helicopter experiment of that.
Well,
talk about entertaining.
Well, hey, production team, hire us as technical consultants and get us on location. I mean, look, I would take a year off college just for that. So who's game to camp in the triangle with me? If
I'm
it
down.
I'm down.
No chance whatsoever. Can I just read one brief note that I wrote down?
Before you do, hold on a second. I don't mean to be rude, but Jimmy's got to get out of here because he's got a show he's got to get ready for. So, Mr. Church, thank you so much for stopping by, man. This was an absolute surprise and pleasure.
I had so much fun and I learned so much. And I'm not just saying that. This was just glorious. This is so much fun.
Come back anytime you want. Watch or don't watch the show. Either way, it was fun.
Everybody behave. All right.
Bye, That's all we know how to do. That's all we know how to do. All right, Jimmy, have a good one, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Jimmy Church, everyone. Wow, that was fun. Jimmy Church here. Sorry, Jazz. What were you going to say? What was your note there?
No, one of the notes I wrote down, and this really is just sort of a side lobe thing. After the second time I watched it, when they were plotting all the stuff we've been talking about and sending people up to go throw probes out and go watch them and try to track them from the ground. Out of all the people there, Dragon is the security guy. He's not the tech guy. He's not the science guy. And the note I wrote down was, hey, and this was something that one of the tech people said on the ground, there was this dark black thing that went underneath. If it crashed into our propeller on the helicopter, everybody could die. And I wrote down, something might crash into the rotors. Let's send Dragon. And so that was kind of, I was wondering why Dragon was there, but I appreciate it was because everybody loves Dragon. But why are you risking Dragon when you should just really be a scientist? What's he going to do as security? It's like, the black thing might show up. He can shoot it. It's like,
well, who on the team is suspendable then?
Yeah, who's
I don't
expendable
know.
on the team?
It was just I thought it was a risk for Dragon they didn't need to take.
Caleb,
Just
put Caleb up there.
put Caleb up there. Nobody cares if Caleb comes back. You know, everybody wants to
That's
see Dragon
Caleb.
come
If you're
back.
watch that's not true. We totally want you to
Yeah,
come
yeah.
back.
That was a
Because this show would
total
not
joke.
be the
Sorry,
same
Caleb.
without your broken phone.
But I mean that's what I love about Dragon. He is hands-on, do it all guy, serious as they come, but
Yep.
you can tell his care is genuine, and he'll jump into fire to help somebody, and it shows through that very
Yeah.
stern face. But that's why we all love him.
Yeah, there was one time in the show, in this episode, where Travis was talking. What was Travis talking about? They had found like a part in the sky after looking at the data. He's like, right there, that's where we should be looking, right there in the part of the sky. And they cut to a face of Dragon. He's just like, come on already. Would you just stop talking?
Yep.
I was like, that's an interesting sort of cut to put in there. But here's one thing I will say that I noticed, excuse me, is last season, especially Dragon, he looked like tired. He looked like he was personally going through something. I'm completely 100% speculating on that, but he didn't seem as fiery in season 2. This season, he's back. He looks healthy. He's got like his face is fuller. I don't know what it is, but he just looks ready to go. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great Dragon season. That's sort of what I sort of gathered from the few clips that we got of the drag, especially him jumping out of the helicopter. Like I said, just Creedence Clearwater Revival playing the whole time he was doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And also last year, Travis Taylor looked in a couple of episodes like he was hungover. He looks great this year. I did not get that impression at all. And also they look stronger, because I know for sure Caleb and Travis have been working out on the ranch like monsters. If you look at their Instagram, they're doing like straight up, what do they call it? CrossFit kind of exercises in the middle of the Utah desert. So everybody looks refreshed. Everybody looks ready to go. Everybody seems super excited. So that, as a viewer, that got me excited as well. So that's just one thing I wanted to throw in there. But does anybody have any sort of closing thoughts on this first episode? Jazz, we'll start with you. And then we'll get scores after.
I was happy with it. For everything we discussed, I am a little excited. I don't know where it's going. I don't know. And you bring up a lot of great points, by the way. Everybody did. How much of it was exactly what Brandon would want to see, what he was trying to say, and how much of it was the production company. I don't know these things, but I think they're looking at interesting things. I'm curious about a lot of them. I think they're giving me breadcrumbs that I can go investigate in the background, and see if maybe in future shows we'll have information we can go and ask them about. I got nothing bad to say, really. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, awesome. Cristina, any sort of closing thoughts on it?
For the very first episode of the season, again, I really liked the fact that they weren't doing a preview of all the previous seasons. They went straight into the experimentation. They brought in the governor of Utah the first few minutes. So it was very intriguing. It was very entertaining. And they didn't mess around in the first episode. So overall, I was pleased with it, especially looking at a few other episodes in previous seasons where some of them kind of fell flat. This one did really well, in my opinion.
Well, as the esteemed, and I mean that esteemed, I've seen him speak and he's done some really cool stuff in the scientific world. According to, Dr. Travis Taylor, I think we just need to take another bite out of this apple. He has the best, little lines.
He does. He is. Well, it's just funny to see his arc from season 1 till now. Like last season, he was the guy who was seeing everything. He went from season 1 to not believing any of this to season 2 seeing a whole bunch of it, and now season 3, he's in, man. Like I feel like he is excited about doing the show and being there and adding his expertise to it. But rather, what are your closing thoughts?
None of the science or data really moved the needle on what I think about Skinwalker Ranch. But man, it was an entertaining show. It's a great cast of characters, and I was disappointed when it ended. I wanted to go straight to episode 2. So
I thought it
entertained.
felt short. The episode felt short. Is that fair? Would everybody say that?
And that's a good when you're having fun. Yeah.
It felt compressed.
Yeah.
It felt like the whole show focused on like 2 incidents instead of a series of things to me.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We've got a couple questions from the audience, and then we're going to get to our scores. So Ryan Sprague has a question. What's up, Ryan? You beautiful cherub, you. Ryan Sprague asks, Lou, what do you guys think of Brandon working closer with governmental people, former governor? Is it because he feels they're being monitored by the government and wants to fight fire with fire? I'm curious, what do you think of that, Jazz?
No, like I said earlier in the show, those two have been working together for a long time on a lot of stuff. They're close friends, and I think the former governor is very interested. He wants to know. Maybe part of that is a factor that it brings more tourism. I don't want to sound cynical, but it's good for the state.
Yeah.
They do a lot of charity work together. They do a lot of business development work together. I think it's a very natural fit. And no, I don't really have any suspicions about that.
It's also not the first and only time that he's worked with government. Like I know he's very close to the senators in Utah and the congressman in Utah, and obviously the governor. I'm not sure how close he is with the new governor, but he's very politically actively involved, and I think it's because of exactly what you said. He's a real estate developer, and so getting in with politicians is kind of goes hand in hand. But I think in those conversations, the subject of Skinwalker Ranch comes up. And I would assume every once in a while, he probably perks the ear of some of these lawmakers, and they get curious to a point where either they ask him more or they go and visit the ranch, which I think is wonderful because I keep hitting my mic. Sorry, guys. I think it's wonderful because it's bringing attention to the topic, which I think is good. I don't know. Do any of you guys have any thoughts on that?
The problem with Luis's mic is that he took the dolphin off of it. That's the problem.
I put the dolphin on top of Bill Murray's hat. So, yeah. Sorry, Jazz. I didn't
just try to promote the merch. Sorry.
There you go. That's how you do it.
There, merch right below the video, and the sticker is part of the merch. So if you want a dolphin sticker, it's right below. But rather, Jane, do you guys have any thoughts on this aspect of the conversation?
Well, as Jazz said, I think the same. Through Mr. Fugel's friendship with the former governor and the governor having an interest himself, there must be some future show point where the governor might bring something interesting and unexpected to the table, either tech resources or through contacts in DC that will enhance the investigation further.
That would be cool. Any thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think the governor brings Skinwalker Ranch a little bit of credibility, and Skinwalker Ranch show brings the former governor, a little bit of national exposure. So I think it's a win-win for both of them.
Win-win.
That's true.
Jane, any thoughts?
Yes, Brandon probably has some NDA signed, probably with different people, way beyond what the people that we all necessarily see on camera at Skinwalker Ranch. It seems like he's interested in actually finding out the truth about what's happening there. So I imagine has a very collaborative, mind. Sorry, I'm flying around. Not a UFO, guys.
Well, let's freeze that. Did your altimeter go off, Jane?
I went off. Yep. Yeah. Magic went off.
Confirmed UFO.
Yes, I think he's a very collaborative person. It sounds like he was talking about getting data from other similar sites like Moonshadow Ranch and things like that. So, yeah, I think so, and I think it's
Blind Frog Ranch,
positive thing. Yeah, Blind Frog's the other one. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So real quick, want to say thank you to Yav Samuel Lieberman, who's a new member of the channel. Welcome to the membership. Appreciate the financial equipment or financial commitment. Thank you so much. It's amazing anytime people decide to donate to the show. So appreciate it. Duncan Frary says, yes, the cameras. We're 2 years into the show and they're just installing comprehensive cameras. WTF. Well, I think cameras are always great when you get them for free, and it seems like they got these for free because the company who set them up got the exposure on the show. So sometimes the production deals work out stuff like that. So I'm curious to know how cost effective these cameras were, and that's probably part of the reason why they put them up. But I saw you scoff. What were you scoffing at there, Jazz?
We're talking about a vast range of territory.
It's huge.
And
it's a 526 acre ranch.
It's gigantic.
It's huge.
And I realize Brandon Fugel, rich man, he's a billionaire, but everybody has limits. It's like, that's such a huge tract of land. How many places do you need cameras? How much does it cost to put them all out there? How much does it cost to gather that data and have people sit there and watch it all? I think there's even limits for Brandon Fugel. I hope they're doing the best job they can and putting cameras in the most active spots and watching that all the time. But yeah, it would be wonderful if we could just snap our fingers and go, oh, we'd like satellite cameras on the ground, everything else, planes 24/7, watch everything going on. That's not cheap. That's just what I'm saying.
If there's one thing I know about billionaires is they usually don't like to spend their own money on research or any sort of experimental stuff. They'll usually look to government subsidies or partnerships to fulfill the equipment that they're looking for, so then they don't have to spend any of their own cheese. And that's how rich people stay rich, man. They don't use their own money. Same in Hollywood. Like, you don't pay for your own movie to be made. You find other people to pay for your movie to be made. You never spend money on your own
That's
flick.
one of the most genius things I've heard said publicly in a show like this in a long time. That's how rich people stay rich.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you're a poor person and nobody's watching you on TV. No, Lou's correct.
Yeah. Neurostream with a $10 donation says, would you be willing to pay a subscription fee, say $5 a month, for the Skinwalker Ranch app for a real-time access to the security/surveillance systems and cameras? Love the big panel today. Thank you so much for the donation. And what a wonderful question. This is a good question. Would you guys pay a Netflix, $5 a month to get access to those 5 new cameras streaming on your computer 24/7? Jane, what do you think?
Oh, if I was just a viewer, probably not. As a researcher, probably. I pay for the MUFON membership and I like data points. Yeah, so I guess I probably would, but I'm biased.
Rather?
I'd rather someone else watches it 24 hours and gives me the good stuff.
I used to watch Volcano Camp. I like watching astronauts walk on the moon.
There is a market. There is a segment of people that do love to watch live streams like that.
Well, and it is beautiful territory. Chris Bartell takes some amazing pictures. Like, it would, I guess, if you had just a picture frame showing the Uinta Basin, that would be cool.
Amazing.
That would be cool. Cristina, what do you think? Would you pay $5 a month to stream that 24/7 whenever you wanted to?
I would keep a window open with the stream going for sure, but on the other hand, when I get my RV, when I graduate, I want to go to the Uinta Basin area and do my own research with my own tech gear, night vision, FLIR thermal, etc. So while at the moment I would say yes, in the near future I'll be like, I'd rather use my own eyes instead of a camera.
Okay. But that also, ideally I would love, obviously, all 5 cameras to be available on a web portal like that. But let's say you are the kind of person who would pay $5. I think I might. $5 is probably my limit. I don't know if I'd go any higher than that. But the idea of somebody recording that feed 24/7 seems insurmountable. Like, where are you going to save all of that? That would be gigs. Terabytes.
This space is cheap though. You could store that in the cloud easily.
Could you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
look at all the stuff from Mars. How many videos have we watched from people that have been watching all the live streams from the Mars rovers? And they come up, and some of them certainly very dubious. It's like, what's that? That was a UFO. That might be a piece of technology. There are people out there that are taking free government video, excuse me, streams from Mars, from NASA, and they're watching it. If somebody made the same thing available, from Skinwalker Ranch, I'm pretty sure there are people that would show up just like we have from Mars and the moon and everything else where you see all the conspiracy theories, and they would be watching all of it and they would highlight things. So making it available, I think there's no downside to making it available. It's a question of who's going to pay for it. I'd kick in, although I wouldn't watch it every day. But yeah, I'd pay $5 a month. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
how
and
much
then
have I kicked into this damn stream?
You put a lot more than $5 into this stream, that's for sure.
And as long as someone's collecting all that, I think that's also pretty important, kind of like what Rather said. And I mean, I personally have a 2 terabyte cloud, and I think cloud-based streaming and recording is an option now that it's not so expensive. And I would pay a premium to have access to those cameras as long as it's coming out raw, unfiltered in real time.
But it would also be great if you can, let's say something anomalous did happen, if you had the ability to rewind it, and then record it and share it. That would be important as well. I think that, because like, for example, I wanted to take screenshots from the episode, but when you're playing the Amazon Prime on your computer, Amazon recognizes when you're trying to record a segment of the show or even take a picture, a still frame of the show. It doesn't let you do it. You literally have to get, it comes up blank when you try to take a screenshot of it. Because
I have to go try that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So usually when I do take pictures, I just didn't do it last night. I do it with my phone, and try to enhance them as best I could. I mean, it's a telephone picture of a screen, so it always comes across weird. But yeah, I mean, this is a question from Michael Gutierrez, and maybe you could ask this to Jimmy, Cristina, because you interact with him a lot. He asks, Jimmy Church, can you let Richard Dolan can you let Richard Dolan, I'm assuming, know that the guys from UFO Garage have been trying to get him on the show? UFO Garage trying to get Richard Dolan. Maybe you can help facilitate that, Cristina. I mean, look at her face. It sounds like she's so down. Looks like
I can message that.
Okay, all right,
no problem.
Look on your face. You're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. But
no,
cool.
I will. I mean, it's even hard for me to get Richard Dolan on. It's even hard for me to get him on. But I will contact Jimmy to contact Richard to get them in. I mean, that's the least I can do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you.
But also Richard is a very, very busy guy. That's also
indeed
a fact.
He is.
So
indeed
I mean, getting in contact with him is no easy feat.
Right. And then last, we got a donation from Ronan, and it just says, because Cristina Gomez is on the show. Thank you, Ronan. Cristina, you want to come on the show every day? I mean, we can get Ronan come hang out. Dan James with a $10 super sticker. Thank you so much, you guys, for these donations. Again, these donations are not necessary to ask questions or anything like that, and or to get any access to extra stuff. Everything's free here. So if you're sending us money, it's because you really love the show, and we really love you. So thank you so much. All right, so let's do it, you guys. We're here. We're at the final score of the show, segment of the show. So we'll start with the ladies. I'm not going to go to Cristina first because I know 9 times out of 10 she hates me to go to her first.
and someone knocked on the door, so I'll just be right back.
No problem. Okay, so Jane.
All right.
As usual, we got 2 scores. We got our science score and we got our entertainment score. Give us whichever one you want to first. Go for it.
Yeah, this episode flew. I thought it was a great start to this season. I'm not going to go 10 yet because I got to save that, But yeah, I mean, it was a solid 8 entertainment.
Okay.
It was a great season premiere. As far as science goes, I can't keep it at an 8. But I thought there were a lot of good breadcrumbs, and I thought the the methodology behind the experiments or thinking behind it were pretty good, even if the execution was a little clunky. And so I don't know, like a 6.5, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty strong. I think that's actually really. That's really. Maybe
good.
I'm gonna regret that. We'll see.
No,
see how the rest of
it. Well, that's the high bar right now. We'll see where it goes from there.
The bug, brought it down for me, but we'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind. I think it was a spaceship. Yeah, maybe I'll change my mind later. Right?
Rather, what's your score, buddy?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what you said, Jane, for entertainment. I was thoroughly entertained. I was left wanting for more. So, I'll give it an 8 for entertainment. Science, they're trying, but I don't think that what they did in that episode can really be considered science. There was no control. We don't really know anything about the sensors that they set up. I'll give them a 2 for effort on the science.
All right. Pretty harsh score on science.
2
Jazz?
for effort.
Kind of on the same level with Jane. I enjoyed the entire show. Entertainment wise, I'll leave room for more, but yeah, 8. Nowhere near rather. I think I might be proven wrong later, but I'm gonna give them a 5 on the science. I think they're putting stuff out there. I hope they provide more later that bumps that score up. They might not. That might bump it down. But no, I'm really happy with the season so far.
Okay. Cristina, what do you think? Science score, entertainment score?
For the science score, I keep going back and forth, but I'm thinking about rating it a 7 just because they got straight into the experimentation, and that was expensive science as well. And for the entertainment rating, I'm going to have to give it a 9. I really am for this episode. After watching the 2 previous seasons, this one had to be more entertaining than the majority of ones in the past. So overall, I was pretty impressed with episode 1 of season 3 of Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay,
fair.
That's a pretty high score there, my lady.
I know. I think the highest I've ever given it. So hopefully they don't let me down.
Yeah, there you go. Chris Lato is in the house. So, by the way, we're going to be doing a really cool event with Chris Lato on the 27th of this month. Stay tuned for that.
I hope Lou's giving a score.
Oh, I'm going to give a score right now. I'm just giving a little shout out to the Chris Lato initiative.
Don't leave us all out on the,
No. I would never do that. I would never do that. Just acknowledging this $20 super chat from Chris Lato. It says, "Great show, you guys love it. Did Luis tell you about the space balloon launch? UAP Society thoughts?" No, I have not told them yet, Chris. I don't think I have time, but essentially, yeah, they're doing a balloon launch at the Vernal, Utah convention, and they're also going to be unveiling an NFT style program that helps the community sort of grow grassroots investigations. So that's the best way I could sort of put it in a nutshell. There's a lot more details coming out. It's very, I think it's one of the most exciting initiatives out there, and the people who are joining on board are it's going to be really, really cool. So we'll get into all of the details on that leading up to the 27th, but I'll be hosting that event from Chris Lato's channel. It'll be free to everybody, and we'll explain everything that's going on. But yeah, it's going to be super, super fun. So don't miss it. Chris, thank you for the donation. Truly appreciate it. Let's get to my score. So entertainment score, because that's the one that I think is always the easiest to give. I'm going to give this an 8.5. And I think it knocked it up that half point above you guys, just because I loved watching the dragon hop out of the helicopter, man. That was just and some of the faces that he made, and that he looks healthy. The show was fun. It felt short, like I said, which is always a good sign if you feel like, oh man, that's it, the show's over already. I'm looking forward to episode 2 and the rest of the season. The preview for the rest of the season looked like, I was like, damn, I saw something explode. I'm like, okay, like, let's go. So 8.5 on the entertainment aspect. On the science aspect, I'm gonna go higher than rather. I'm gonna say a 4. Almost want to give it a 4.5. I might have bumped it up to a 5. Only because there's stuff outside of the science that I think is valuable to us, and that's what Jazz Shaw brought up. The idea that there's stuff that was in this episode that should 100% be foilable and 100% we should be able to get. And I think that would add to the sort of the science aspect of this, if not the sort of grassroots sort of level of this conversation. So for me, that was incredibly valuable. You know what? I'm going to bump it up to a 5. I think this was a 5 on the science. So I'm going to go 8.5 on entertainment, 5 on science. I thought it was an insanely fun episode. Although I think, again, the things that would improve the science scores for me is just a little more detail, and have experiments that fail and acknowledge those failures. I think would be 2 huge things that would take science scores from 4s and 5s all the way up to 8s and 9s, possibly 10s. I mean, that would go a long way, I think, for everyone, especially the people who are haters on this show, because there's a lot of haters. And the thing is, and just to go back to Brandon Fugel for a second, like, you could bitch and complain all you want about how this show's silly, or it's not scientific enough, or it's not this, it's not that. We've never had access like this to this ranch ever. So be thankful for that, because without this silly show, we wouldn't see a lot of these things. We wouldn't know about a lot of these things. This used to be held behind closed gates and not shared with anybody. And all of that data and all of that stuff that they found went to our government, and it was sold to them, and we will never see it. So we should be thankful. Like, we should. And when Brandon comes on this show, he invites the hard questions. He invites the criticisms. We don't feel like we're walking on eggshells when we talk to Brandon Fugel. We can ask him whatever the hell we want. There's nothing off limits. So that's why I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt when we talk about this show. And he says nothing was staged, nothing was planned. I'm going to believe that until something shows me otherwise. I'm going to go ahead and believe that. So, so just keep that in mind when you watch this, and that's sort of my final thoughts. Does anybody else have anything to add here?
I would like to end my part in the review by saying that there are other places in the United States where similar things are happening as on Skinwalker Ranch. For example, Bradshaw Ranch, which is between Cottonwood and Sedona, and another place, which has government involvement, property buyouts, cameras and fences, and all the paranormal and UFO phenomena you see at Skinwalker Ranch. There are also places in Brazil and places in Europe which display similar phenomena, and they haven't got the coverage, which is kind of disappointing, but I think that Skinwalker Ranch is really helping with that. But these places these types of places are out there to be investigated, and I'm interested what the links are between all of these locations across the globe. And I was smiling just now because Jimmy just sent this picture. He's eating ramen, and he took a picture of all of us in the panel. Nice. So that it just made me smile.
Jimmy Church, you're watching. I forgot to tell you, you owe me a t-shirt, man. You owe me a t-shirt, buddy. So I want my Fade to Black t-shirt. I want it in the mail, or I'll just come pick it up for you since you're in the state of California. All right, you guys. Well, that was a lot of damn fun. Thank all of you for coming by, hanging out, doing the Skinwalker Ranch review. I can't wait for episode 2. Next week, we're going to have the dragon here. So we'll get even more insight to how the show's made in these moments where we have questions. Dragon last year filled in those questions for us really, really nicely. And he's also got a wonderful sense of humor. He doesn't mind that we make fun of moments of the show. He doesn't mind that we have fun with him. So, and that goes for all the guys so far at Skinwalker Ranch. They've all been super cool, and they love this review. They come to this review show and watch for their sort of, their after show thoughts on what people are thinking. And that's fun, man. And just to touch on what Cristina was saying with other ranches, we had him on the show just last week, and he was talking about a collaboration with, was it Sky Moon Ranch?
Moonshadow Ranch. So Moonshadow Ranch, by the way, back in the day, it was just a rumor, guys, on Reddit, and I could never find anything on it. And then I asked Dragon, he was like, "Yeah, Moonshadow Ranch is real." And then Brandon Fugel confirmed it, and
And turns out the owner of Moonshadow Ranch was Brandon Fugel's Eagle Scout when he was a kid.
I had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'll be putting that clip up on UCR Clips later tonight, so watch out for that. But yeah, I just want to say thank you, Rather, thank you, Jane, thank you, Jazz, thank you, Christina, thank you, Jimmy Church. That was a real blast for you guys hanging out. Before we get out of here, of course, I want to let you guys know tomorrow we have our regular UCR show, starts at 3 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be having who are we having? Stephen Greenstreet. I don't know why I keep forgetting this. Stephen Greenstreet's going to be joining on the show.
I'll be in the chat for that one.
I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be in the chat for that one, and I got to tell you, we've got some hard questions coming for him. And yeah, it's going to be a fun interview. Stephen's not afraid to answer questions, or afraid to look like a fool. You know, like dude is. Yeah. So we'll be talking to him tomorrow. Other than that, you guys. Have a wonderful night out there. Be safe, everybody, and we'll see you next week for episode 2 review of the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Later. Love you all. Peace.
Now, News 12 Sports with Pat Murphy.
Great news regarding Bills tight end Kevin Everett. He moved his arms and legs today. And doctors now believe that's the wrong video, by the way. That is not the right video.
I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.